Don't wait till the battle's over. Don't wait till the struggle ends. Shout out, shout out, right now. Shout out, shout out. Don't wait till you make it.
Hey, this is Phillip with the PHILLIP Show. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the PHILLIP Show, and here we talk about things that are going to inspire you. Hopefully, they're going to encourage you. We celebrate uniqueness, authenticity, and we try to give you tools to be your best self so you can be you. And today is no different. So if you have some coffee, grab your coffee, and we're just going to dive right on in. Okay, so listen, I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but a lot of us are on social media, right? A lot of us are on social media. We see a lot of ads. We see a lot of marketing pitches. It could be for beauty. It could be for fitness. It could be for whatever it is. And the bottom line is, we're going to talk today about how do those images, how do those campaigns, how do those marketing ploys, how do they shape our self-image? And do we shape it in a positive way? Or are we stuck on a journey where we're trying to attain something that may be unattainable? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever looked at, listen, and I know guys don't talk about this a lot. I have seen some great Instagram pages, and everybody has way more six packs than I do. Everybody has way better cars than I do. Everybody has way better this or way better that. I used to work in beauty. The pictures were great, the lighting was wonderful, but is that reality? And if not, how does that impact us when we look at ourselves, we look at trying to find self-worth and our self-image, and is it positive or is it negative? So today, we have a special guest. Her name is Akilah Henry, and she's going to be here, and she's going to talk about all of these things, and we're just going to break it down, ask questions, get to the nitty-gritty, and see if we can figure out how we can look at these images, understand what they are, and how they fit into our lives without putting us in the position where all of a sudden we think we're less than, we feel as though we're not achieving, we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not small enough, we're not short enough, we're not tall enough, we're not fat enough, we're not skinny enough, we're just not enough. And how can we maneuver that and come out on the other side with a positive self-image? So, people out there in TV land, help me welcome Miss Akilah Henry. Akilah, it's so good to see you today. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yes, yeah, I am so glad you're here. So let's jump in. Where are you?
I'm in New York City.
New York City. How's it going in New York? What's going on there?
It's good. We've actually had some really great weather the last couple of days, so I'm happy about that.
All right.
It's been warm.
Yep.
It's different ever since, COVID hit. It's not the same. It's been a lot quieter, but New York is always going to be New York, so.
You said it's warm. I'm super jealous because it just started snowing here, and I mean, hashtag I can't, I can't. Okay, so today we're talking about positive self-image and finding our self-worth and our value with the things that are thrown in front of us. So you are such an expert in your field. If you can, just give us a little bit of background. I know you're amazing at being creative director, marketing. Just tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I am creative director at a multimedia company, and it's one of two of us, and we kind of oversee a group of women's magazines.
Okay.
So we're on the publishing side, so we kind of support our sales and marketing team. We create ads and advertorials, things that you would see mostly in print. We do some online work, but yeah, that's what I do.
So mostly in print, and you do some online work. Okay, so before we jump into a lot of the things that you may do at your job, based on the subject matter, you growing up in New York, that's like the hub of United States fashion, and some would argue the world, but, we'll just say United States. We'll say United States. But you grew up in New York?
Yep, born and raised.
Okay, born and raised in New York with all the hubbub and the fashion and everything. How do you think that images and marketing played a role in your view of yourself?
Well, in regards to living in New York, I think what is a benefit of living here is that there's so many different kinds of people. and it's so inspirational. Everybody who comes here, from all over the world with their own style. So, I think it kind of, in some ways, makes you a little bit more grounded because you get to experience a lot of different people expressing themselves the way that they want to. There's a lot of freedom here. So you have that basis of, yeah, I can look like this, I can look like that, even though media is trying to, create an ideal. We're able to see when you walk out on the street, people look any way that they wanted it,
Yeah.
and they're pretty comfortable. So that it's been really great having that foundation.
I bet because it's so eclectic there.
Yeah.
And it's almost like no matter what your style, I used to live in New York for a while, so no matter what your style, it's like you have permission to look that way.
Exactly. People are like, listen, even if I don't have permission, I'm doing it anyway. So,
Yeah.
and I think New York is one of those cities that's kind of been on the forefront of inclusivity in that way, or self-expression, where, you're allowed to do what you want and set the trends, like you were saying, for the rest of the nation and culture. So I think there's a little bit more of an allowance here in being and looking the way that you want.
Yeah, because it's so diverse.
Yeah, because it's so diverse. There's so many different cultures. You can, especially in Manhattan, I happen to live in Queens, but, there's various sections. You have a Korean section, you have an Italian section, you have, every culture represented, Brazilian street and this, that. So people come and they bring their culture and, they express themselves the way that they want. So you sort of grow up with, at least I did, with just thinking that that's commonplace, but it's not. The rest of our nation kind of isn't really like that. But so that has been helpful in me understanding myself in relation to other people. Like there's a whole different world out there, and yet it's all here at the same time. So
it's interesting that you said you can do that in New York and maybe not so much in other places. It reminded me of where I live. I live in a town called Yellow Springs. And here it's very eclectic and you sort of have permission to look any way you want.
Right.
Now, people have their judgments and their preferences as to what you should look like.
Right.
But, you have that allowance, as you were saying, to just kind of be an individual. And one of the things that I want to ask you about, going from where you, as you're growing up and you transition, what made you want to go into marketing and advertising?
That's a really long story. But to make it as short as I can, I had no idea. that that's really what I wanted to do. I was always creative as a kid. I always wanted to draw, and I would make up stories, and I loved to read and being lost in stories. But I didn't have direction, I guess, when I was growing up. I knew I had to go to college, so that was because it was the right thing to do, but I had no idea what I was going to do. I went to a law and humanities high school, and I thought that was the direction I was going to go in, until I realized that for myself morally, that probably wasn't the best fit for me. So when I went to college, I loved science and biology, so I thought I was going to be a bio major, and I was on that track for most of my college career. But I'm bad at math, really bad. So math told me no, you can't do that.
Math told you no.
Math said no, this is not for you. So I really kind of panicked, I guess, a little bit. I was towards almost ready to graduate, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remembered that I met somebody who did graphic design in my freshman year. And, I remember her telling me, like, trying to explain to me what graphic design was, because I had no idea. So she showed me a cup, it had a logo on it, and she's like, oh, see this logo? Somebody would actually have to design this, and, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, oh, that's pretty cool. So we had a short conversation, and here it was like 3 years later, and I remember this conversation. So I did not go to an art school. I went to a business school, and there were limited classes that I could take in terms of art and design. So I decided to sign up for one, and I didn't like it because it was very technical. So, they're talking about this drive and zip and JPEG and this and all this stuff. And I could barely turn on a computer. Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I really could barely, I knew the basics. And we're talking, I'm dating myself, but, I had like a WordPress machine. Like I used a typewriter basically. So, I know. Don't shame me. Don't shame me. And so I dropped the class, and and during that time I was really kind of saying, well, I guess I'll just graduate with a basic liberal arts degree and see what happens when I get out into the world. But long story short, I ended up taking another class over the summer, and we had an adjunct professor come in, and he was old school. He was like, we're not going to use the computer in this class. Everything's going to be done by hand. And our first exercise was to take letter forms and trace those letter forms and understand the structure of typeface and fonts and things like that. And I literally fell in love with it. I felt like meeting the love of my life. And I was like, this is amazing. And shortly after that, I started working professionally, even before I graduated from college. So it was really a blessing. I know that like God was definitely a part of that journey for me, because everything just flowed so smoothly after that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you ended up remembering what your friend said and taking that class.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it was all, just sort of a divine connection of things coming together. And, it took me back to when I was a kid and what I loved to do then. So.
Okay, so now where you are, you work with. Describe a little bit about what you do when you're at work, and what kind of product, or what is it that you work with?
Yeah. So basically, I work for several different magazines. So each of those magazines is like considered a brand. So we work in kind of communicating the voice of that brand to advertisers and selling them into each of those titles.
Gotcha.
So what I basically have to do, especially, I started off working for one magazine, and then the way that our company changed the structure is they started grouping like magazines together. So now, we had to learn how are we going to sell all of these magazines as a title. What are the benefits of each, while each is still maintaining its individuality.
Wow. Yeah.
So so we have to, figure out how we're going to market that, and also if an advertiser, say, I don't know, Johnson and Johnson or something, they have multiple products. So if a seller feels like a particular product will work for the audience that we have, and we want to sell them into that magazine, we want to get some of their dollars or into our social program, we come up with ideas. And so this is what we can do for you, as a brand, or this is what this brand can do for you, because we reach the target that you're going after. So a lot of what I do is visualizing or coming up with a visual product for what an idea can be. And they buy into that idea. Either they will, have their own team design an ad or an advertorial. An advertorial is basically like an ad that looks like an edit product. So it may look like an edit story, but it says advertisement on the top, if you've ever seen those. So we'll create those for them. I also do a lot of presentations and things that help the marketing team and the sales team sort of sell our magazines.
Got it. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot. It's
That's a lot. I need to go take a nap. That made me tired.
It is a lot, and it can be a lot, but it's really fun too, because I do a lot of different types of things. What I like about my job is that I can be working on print pages, or I could be doing, working in part of a social campaign, or I could be doing a photo shoot, or we could be doing an event and I'm doing posters or making little cups or anything like that. So I'm not limited to one type of design, and I get to learn a lot.
I love the fact that you love what you do. And even though, it's so interesting because each person is an individual, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
It's because that's the niche for you.
Yeah.
And I just love that because you found something that you're passionate about, even though the work can get cumbersome, you still love it.
Yeah.
I love that. And that goes to the kind of like the overall, like broad spectrum of the show, like be you, know who you are.
Right.
And do what you do what you're passionate about. Because you could have gone any other way.
Yeah.
And, but I'm so glad that your talents and your abilities and your interest landed you somewhere where you're just like, I really like this. And that speaks volume. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like anything, a job is a job,
Yeah.
So it's not called play, it's called work. So
I'm gonna get a t-shirt that says that. It ain't play, it's work.
So it definitely has its ups and downs. And, to the point of this topic, I've seen a lot of transition in terms of who's represented and why. And especially when we're going through this particular movement as Black people and seeing how companies and advertisers are responding to this, and, the place where I fit into that because, I'm one of few that do what I do in my company. So, it's navigating all those things and trying to maintain a level of authenticity.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, Yeah.
When you're looking at some of the, and this is going to be just, basically your opinion on this part. When you're looking at some of the ways that some of the brands are going, like you were talking about, specifically in this time where there's a heightened sense of awareness when it comes to race and race relations. But there's also the other avenue where people are trying to sell products. Right. And they're trying to create imagery and basically fantasy kind of around the goodness, if you will, of products or even services. When you see some of those things, what this is going to be a hard one, but what goes through your head when it comes to, or does anything when it comes to looking at that and seeing what are they trying to say? Right. And what are they trying to do? Does selling the product mean, do you think it gives people some self-doubt at all?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, people want to move their product, right? Yeah. And so that is the foundation for everything that we see. And I think that me coming from a place of being behind the scenes and understanding that for myself gives me a little bit more of a reality check when I want to get lost in that, like, I'm not good enough, scenario. Because I think, and again, this is my opinion, but when we are creating something, a lot of times, some of the phrasing that we'll use is that we want it to be aspirational. So when somebody's looking at this, they're aspiring to, and in order to get to that place, whatever that place is, I need these things to get there.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't something that's why a lot of, showing quote unquote real people, real situations doesn't necessarily always work. Although people say they want that, they don't necessarily, because we look at media as an escape sometimes, and we look for media to direct us, whether we, can admit that or not, to what to do. And so if everything looks exactly like me, then I'm not buying anything. You know what I mean? Because I already have it.
Yeah.
So I think that there is that balance that needs to be had where, there are things that we can aspire to but it's not limited to those who can receive it and who can't receive it. I don't know if that means, if I'm being clear with that, but even in that aspirational aspect, a lot of times it's kind of saying, you're not allowed to aspire to this. Whereas you are, the said person is, and you other people are not even allowed to aspire to this because you're not good enough. And that's where I think the problem lies. But I think as people, we have to understand that in all of it, the basis of it is you reaching into your pocket and spending money.
Sales.
It's sales.
Yeah.
It's all sales. It is all sales. All of it is sales.
Yeah.
And, we're going to, on the corporation side and on the business side, we are going to be influenced by what people want and what we think is going to get people to see what we have to offer.
Sure.
So that's why, there is some good that comes out of social media that we see. And, I didn't grow up in social media. I'm pretty social media.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, all right. I think one of the good things that has come out of it, and I see that with like my nieces who are younger, is that, with influencers and YouTube personalities who are just showing a lot of their life and sharing the things that work for them, is that they're more open to talk to each other and see each other as, as they are. Like when I was younger, especially between girls, there was a lot more tension, but now I see, especially between Black women, it's like, oh girl, your hair, and where'd you get that outfit, and your makeup, and this and that, and the community is a little bit tighter, and I do appreciate that. But of course, on the opposite side of that is, why doesn't my body look this way, and why am I not going on vacations, every 2 hours, or why doesn't my hair look like this or that? But the reality is none of that is true all the time for anybody. There's humanity at the basis of it all. So.
Yeah, for those people who see it the way that you just said, why can't I do this? Why don't I look like this? Why whatever the negative part is from their experience with the visuals of the project or the promotion. What would you say? How would you kind of balance that out? Because I think that there's a voice in there somewhere, because we do have those people that do that. And I don't know that if there's kind of like a voice that says, hey, and by the way, these are the highlight reels from people's lives. This is a highlight reel from this photo shoot. This is the epitome of what things could be, not the reality of day to day.
Right.
Like, how would you explain that or give that balance to someone?
Yeah, I mean, that's a complicated question, because I think it's really the condition of each individual's heart and mind. I think it starts there. I think that if you have a perspective already about yourself, you can create that barrier, when you're looking at these things and seeing it for what it is, whether it's just entertainment, or, at the end of the day, somebody's trying to sell me a product. And I think if you keep that in mind, because, somebody is trying to get something from me. This whole picture, whether it's just views, somebody's trying to get me to view something, somebody's trying to get me to like it, and it's for their benefit more than it is for mine. Most of the time. You know what I mean? Because, if I participate in whatever it is that you're doing, you benefit out of this. So I think keeping that in mind is healthy. I don't think it's what's the word, like cynical. I just think it's healthy, because you can just say, yeah, I'm buying what you're selling, and not be ashamed of that. Like, I love what it is that you're presenting, and I'm here for it. And and just to be open with that, but understand that this is a presentation for them to get something from you. And they are going to position themselves in a place where they can get the most out of you.
Yeah.
But also, and this is just for me personally, is understanding that, being a person of faith and having my value come from how God sees me.
Yeah.
Because if I, having that foundation of, it's the inner person that matters,
Yeah.
and if you develop that person, then that the people that need to surround you will surround you, because
Yeah.
you project in this world, what it is that you need to project, and draw the people close to you that will uplift you, and know that there's more. All of the fantasy passes away at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody has everything all the time,
Yeah.
And so if I make those things the basis of my happiness, I'm lost.
Yeah.
But if I can find joy on the inside, then no matter what I look like, what my weight is like, what my hair is doing, I still can love myself. And yeah, so that's the downside of being bombarded with so many voices telling you how you should be. It can be overwhelming. And I think for me, finding the balance is to not be on social media that much.
You're not on there a lot at all.
I'm hardly on it, but for people who are, I think you have to limit your time on there.
Yeah.
Because it can be very overwhelming,
Yeah.
and there's so many opinions and so much to follow, that it's hard to grasp all of that.
Yeah.
And it can be weighty. It's like putting a lot of weight on your shoulders that's unnecessary when you, as an individual, have the power to step away from it.
Yeah.
You can say, I don't need this all the time, and live a life that's not virtual. So you can have, a social and virtual life, but you've got to balance that with real life and real people. So.
Yeah, I like that, and I think it comes down to know who you are.
Yeah.
Know who you are, because some of the things that are out there, even though you may want them, you still have your identity. You're not getting them because you're trying to build an identity or build a who.
Right.
You're not trying to build a who. You know the who, and everything else is an elective.
Right, exactly. And, that's why I think that keeping that community smaller than larger, because each person or each site or each influencer or each advertiser is going to put their spin on who they think that you should be.
Yeah.
And in order to really, I think, have a solid foundation, you really have to step away from that and have some self-acceptance, and just say that, I am who I am. I enjoy me as I am, and I love me as I am. I can appreciate X, Y, and Z, and I can take a little bit from here and there. Like, I'm here for it. Give me a hair tutorial, yes. A little bit of tip, absolutely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But understanding that at the end of it, I may not look exactly like her, when it's done, because I'm me. My hair texture is X, my skin texture is X, and that's okay. But the process is, I've learned something in that. I've learned a tip, I've learned a trick, per se, or, I've learned how to change up my wardrobe or something like that. So take the tips and apply it to your life, but don't make it a blueprint for how you should live.
Yeah, that's good. Wow, we got some nuggets in here. Akilah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Drop some nuggets on us. Boom. But I appreciate you sharing your perspective, and I hope that we can do this again and you can come back.
Yeah, sure, anytime.
Yes, well, have a great time there in New York City, and we are so excited to have Akilah. And for those of you who are interested more in the show, or if you would like to share your story, please go to www.phillipo'rourke.com. And all of the information is there. So just like you heard today, find the you, find the who, and everything else is an elective. Have fun with it, but remember who you are, and remember that you are the best you in the world. We will see you later. Join us again. See ya.
Don't